Welcome, dear listener. Settle in wherever you are. Let your body find stillness, your eyes grow heavy, and your thoughts begin to drift softly, slowly, back in time. Tonight, we're going to walk together through a world long gone. A world made not of cities or empires, but of small villages scattered across valleys and hilltops. A world where the days were long, the tools were simple, and survival depended on rhythm, routine, and ritual. This is the Bronze Age, before written history began in most places, before the alphabet, before iron. This was the time of early farmers and herders, tool makers and chieftains. A time when people slept by smoky hearth fires, rose before the sun, and worked the earth with blistered hands. Life in the Bronze Age was quiet, but never easy. There was no electricity, no roads, no stores. The world was full of mystery. Every stone, every storm, every sickness carried meaning. People lived close to the land, close to their ancestors, and close to fear. If you'd like to, feel free to share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. You're part of a long, quiet thread of others drifting off to sleep, just like this. In this journey, we won't rush. We'll walk slowly through the village paths. We'll hear the crackling of fires, feel the rough fibers of woven tunics, and breathe in the damp air of river valleys and forest clearings. There are no loud battles here, no screaming emperors, just the slow rhythm of ordinary lives lived long ago. So, if you're ready, take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you like, and imagine yourself thousands of years ago in a world made of wood, stone, and silence. We begin as every day once began. Imagine this: you wake up to darkness. The hearth in the center of your small, one-room house still smolders from the night before. The smell of old smoke and damp earth fills the space. There is no pillow beneath your head, just a tightly packed bed of straw, flattened over time. You slept under a coarse wool blanket, scratchy and worn. There are no windows, only a hole in the roof where smoke drifts upward, barely escaping. The air is cool, even in summer. In winter, it bites. You hear the faint rustling of others nearby. Your family, already beginning to stir. There are no clocks here, no alarms. The sun tells time, and it is nearly up. Breakfast is not waiting. You must make it, if there is food left from the night before. Maybe some leftover grain mash, perhaps a few dried berries, if they weren't eaten during the last storm. There is no sugar, no tea, no coffee, only boiled water, if you're lucky, and a wooden bowl to hold it. Your day begins with labor, always labor. You leave the house, stepping onto a dirt path beaten by generations of bare feet. The village is quiet, but never still. Smoke curls from neighboring roofs. Chickens peck the earth. Dogs bark at invisible threats in the distance. Your task today is the same as yesterday: the fields. The same fields your parents tended. The same fields their parents carved out of forest and brush. The plow you carry is heavy. Its handle is smoothed by years of use. You guide it through the thick, stubborn soil, pulled by a tired ox, if you have one. If not, you push it yourself. The sun rises higher. The sweat begins. Your back aches, but there is no choice. Every patch of land must be tilled, seeded, weeded. If the harvest fails, there is no storehouse to save you. Only hunger. You use no iron tools, just bronze, if you're fortunate. More likely, wood and stone. You pull weeds by hand. You throw stones to scare birds. You crush grain between stones until your fingers cramp. There are no weekends, no holidays except the ones declared by elders or shamans. You work through sore muscles and scraped hands. You learn to ignore pain because pain is simply part of life. Insects swarm you. Dust clings to your skin. The smell of manure never quite leaves your nostrils. You squat to relieve yourself in a pit you dug, cover it with earth, and carry on. Children cry in the distance. Elders sit quietly, weaving or carving tools. A neighbor calls for help lifting a fallen fence. You go because you must. Everyone depends on everyone. When evening comes, there is no relief, just preparation. Animals must be brought in. Fires must be tended. A meal must be made. Often the same grain you planted and harvested months ago, now boiled into a bland, sticky porridge. You eat from the same bowl as your siblings. You speak little. The fire crackles. The smoke stings. Your eyes grow heavy. Outside, the night is deep and dark. No streetlights, only stars. You lie down once more on the straw mat. The aches of the day linger in your body. Tomorrow will be the same. This is the rhythm of your life, and this is why you, most likely, would not last a single day in the Bronze Age countryside. But the world was more than just fields and toil. Let us now leave the ordinary behind and follow the path of one extraordinary man. Let us now step away from the daily toil of the ordinary villager and look instead toward a larger, quieter unraveling, one that spanned entire regions, swallowed kingdoms, and left behind a silence so profound. We are still trying to understand it today. The Bronze Age collapse. It did not happen overnight. And yet, to those who lived through it, it may have felt as sudden and bewildering as a summer storm that never stopped. We begin around the year 1200 BCE, across what we now call the Eastern Mediterranean, the Aegean, Anatolia, the Levant, Mesopotamia. Civilizations that had flourished for centuries began to fall, one after another. Cities were abandoned. Trade routes disappeared. Writing systems vanished. In places where there had once been palaces, scribes, fleets, and temples, there was now only ruin. But to understand the collapse, we must first understand the world that came before it. For hundreds of years, the great civilizations of the late Bronze Age had been connected, if not by empire, then by trade, diplomacy, and ritual. The Egyptians to the south, the Hittites in Anatolia, the Mycenaeans of mainland Greece, the city-states of the Levant, the mighty Babylonian heartlands, all moved in relation to one another. Ships crisscrossed the seas, bearing luxury goods, gold, ivory, bronze, dyed fabrics, fragrant oils. Scribes exchanged formal letters between kings. Treaties were signed. Daughters were married across borders. It was a fragile, glittering world built on interdependence and perhaps overconfidence. And then, something changed. The records grow silent in different places at different times, but the pattern is unmistakable. In Anatolia, the grand Hittite capital of Hattusa fell, its temples looted, its libraries burned. In Greece, the Mycenaean palaces, Pylos, Terans, Mycenae, were all destroyed. In the Levant, cities like Ugarit sent desperate letters to their allies. The enemy is here, our ships are gone, help us. No help ever came. So what caused it? The truth is we don't know. But we have theories. Climate may have played a part. Tree rings and lake sediments suggest a period of prolonged drought. With less rain, crops failed. Famine followed. Societies already stressed may have collapsed under the weight of scarcity. Others blame earthquakes. The region is tectonically active. A string of quakes could have brought down city walls, temples, storage rooms, crippling the infrastructure needed for survival. Some point to the mysterious sea peoples, raiders or migrants who arrived by ship and ravaged coastal towns. Their origins are uncertain. Egyptian records describe battles against them. Perhaps they were both symptom and cause. Migrants fleeing their own disasters, becoming invaders elsewhere. Still others suggest internal unrest, discontent among the lower classes, a breakdown in the complex systems that had supported elite rule. When scribes couldn't be paid, when soldiers went hungry, when officials lost legitimacy, cities may have turned on themselves. Most likely, it was not one cause, but all of them. Drought, earthquakes, invasions, rebellion, interwoven into a slow, moving catastrophe. A kind of chain reaction, each failure triggering another, until the whole shimmering web unraveled. And the result? A centuries-long dark age. Writing vanished from many regions. Palaces were not rebuilt. Trade stopped. Many cities never recovered. Population declined. People returned to simpler, village-based life. And yet, people survived. Farmers still tilled the soil. Craftsmen still worked bronze. Elders still told stories by firelight. The world did not end. It changed. In a strange way, the collapse may have made space for new cultures to emerge. Out of the ashes of the Bronze Age came the seeds of Iron Age Greece, of new Hebrew kingdoms, of Phoenician traders and Assyrian empires. But for those who lived through it, it must have felt like the end of everything they knew. No battles carved into stone. No kings deified. No records to brag about survival. Just silence. The silence of ruined palaces, forgotten roads, and questions still unanswered, even now. And speaking of forgotten, we now turn to those ancient echoes that speak across the ages, not through books or scrolls, but through the earth itself. Let's follow the archaeologists deep into the peat bogs of northern Europe. Now, let us leave behind the crumbling palaces and sunlit fields, and step instead into the hush of a colder, wetter world, where the ground itself keeps secrets, a quiet place, a peat bog, stretching across parts of northern Europe, Denmark, Ireland, the British Isles, the lowlands of northern Germany. These bogs are damp, acidic, and slow-moving. They're mossy. Sponge, like ground swallows what falls into it and preserves it. And sometimes, what it preserves is a person. Here, in these wetlands, archaeologists have uncovered bodies, human bodies, perfectly preserved, sometimes for thousands of years. Their skin, leathery but intact, their hair still clinging to the scalp. Fingernails, even eyelashes, unchanged by time. They are called bog bodies. But these were not accidental drownings or natural burials. Something else happened here. Many of these people met violent ends. Strangled, stabbed, bludgeoned. Some were placed gently, as if sleeping. Others were pinned down with stakes or weighted with branches. Often naked, often alone. Who were they? We cannot say with certainty. They left no names, no written words. But their bodies speak in silence. Take, for example, Talland man. Discovered in Denmark in 1950, he was found curled in a fetal position, eyes closed, a peaceful expression on his face, a rope noose still around his neck, his face so lifelike. The police were first called to investigate a modern murder, but carbon dating revealed his age, over 2,000 years old. Or the woman from Weide, in the Netherlands. She was about 16. Her long, reddish, blonde hair was still intact. She had been strangled and thrown into the peat. And Groball man, his hair neatly combed, his throat cut, his body carefully placed. What do these deaths mean? Some scholars believe they were ritual sacrifices, offerings to the gods of the land, the harvest, the underworld. In times of crisis, crop failure, disease, war, people may have turned to the old powers. The bog, ever hungry, may have been seen as a passage, a gateway between worlds. Others suggest a form of punishment, a final judgment for criminals or outcasts, or perhaps an elite class of individuals chosen, willingly or not, to serve as sacred messengers to the beyond. We'll likely never know. But it is the stillness of these figures that draws us in. They do not cry out. They do not accuse. They simply lie there, in the cold, damp earth, centuries deep in slumber. And it wasn't just people who were given to the bog. Alongside them, bronze axes, wooden idols, combs, woven belts, even butter sealed in clay. Offerings of great value, things that could have been used, traded, eaten, but were instead given up, placed in the peat with care. Why give up so much? Because the world of the Bronze Age was full of unseen forces, spirits of water and wood, ancestors watching from the mist. Storms were not weather, they were warning. Illness was not just sickness, it was imbalance. And so, to set things right, you gave a gift, a sacrifice. Sometimes that meant a life. And here, thousands of years later, in the dim light of a museum or under the soft squelch of moss, these silent witnesses remain. Not rulers, not warriors, not remembered in legend, but preserved. Preserved by the very earth that once swallowed them. Let us leave them now, respectfully, in their quiet rest, and turn our gaze to another mystery, this time not of bodies, but of minds. Let us wonder, how did people remember when they could not write? Now, let us shift once more, away from the preserved silence of the bog into the living rhythm of memory. Imagine a world without writing, no books, no ledgers, no scrolls, no names carved into stone, and yet knowledge still passed on. Stories still endured. Histories were remembered, not in ink, but in voice, in breath. This was the world of the Bronze Age for many. Writing did exist, yes, in palace archives, among elites, in tally marks and cuneiform tablets. But for the vast majority of people, memory was everything. A world of oral tradition. Close your eyes and picture it. Night has fallen. The fields are quiet. The fire crackles low in the center of the roundhouse. Around it, a small gathering. Children wide-eyed, elders nodding, others slowly working with their hands. And one voice rises, a storyteller. Not simply reciting for entertainment, but performing an act of preservation. These were not tales told for fun, though they might delight. They were vessels. Inside them lived genealogies, migration paths, taboos, rituals, battles, land boundaries, bargains between clans, moments of origin and identity. To forget a story was to forget who you were. And so, Stories were built to be remembered. Repetition was key. Phrases returned like drumbeats. And then he said, or, so it came to pass. These weren't filler, they were memory scaffolds. Rhythm helped. Some stories were sung, chanted, their cadences shaped like waves, easy to carry across generations. Details were vivid, anchored to the senses. The ox, hide shield, the fire, bright blade, the path of 7 stones. These repeated images made remembering easier. Some oral traditions lasted not for years, but for centuries. The Homeric epics, though written down in ancient Greece, are thought to contain echoes of oral stories passed down from the Bronze Age. Names, battles, places, all kept alive through recitation long before ink touched parchment. Even today, oral storytelling survives in indigenous traditions, in bardic poetry, in epics that stretch for hours or days. But there was also a vulnerability to it. If the storytellers vanished, if war, disease, or exile scattered the community, memory could be lost. A whole history could fade in a single generation. This impermanence shaped how time was understood. There were no exact years. No, in 1250 BCE, there was only, in the time of the Great Famine, in my grandfather's grandfather's day, before the river dried. Time was circular, marked by seasons, by moons, by floods and harvests. And yet, despite its fragility, oral culture carried depth. It allowed communities to adapt stories over time, to emphasize what mattered most in the moment. A tale of ancient hunger could become a warning for today. A song about a river crossing might remind children where not to walk. It was dynamic, alive. Now, imagine living in such a world, where remembering was not a hobby, but a duty, where forgetting could mean losing your ancestors, your land, your laws, where every person you met was a library, and every gathering was an archive, a different kind of knowledge, one shaped not by permanence, but by presence. As you drift further into this quiet reverie, consider how fragile all memory truly is, etched not only in stone or scrolls, but in the voices of those long gone. And with that, we close the first chapter of our long journey. In our next segment, we will move southward to the sun-baked fields of Mesopotamia, where irrigation changed the fate of nations, and where life, too, was a delicate balancing act. Now we begin a new chapter. The land is flat, the sky wide, and the sun relentless. You are no longer in the cool, damp woodlands of the north. You now stand in southern Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, some 5,000 years ago. This is Sumer, a place of city-states, or Uruk, Lagash, a place where rivers, especially the Tigris and Euphrates, brought both life and destruction. A place where the gods were worshipped through work, through temples, through offerings, and through mud. And you, here, are a laborer. You rise before the sun. The air is already warm. Your home is a narrow space, mud brick walls, thatched roof, the smell of dust, straw, and your neighbor's cooking fire. Your job, not in a market, not in a temple, not even in the fields. You work on the irrigation crew. Without you, and hundreds of others like you, nothing grows. Because while the land between rivers is fertile, it is also capricious. Rain is rare. Droughts are common. And the floods, when they come, do not ask politely. So to survive, to feed the cities and please the gods, your people have dug canals, reservoirs, and levees, Miles of channels snake across the land like veins. Each must be cleared, repaired, watched, and that is your task. You begin by trudging through the thick silt of a half-dry canal, pulling weeds that have taken root in the cracks. The mud sucks at your ankles. Your back aches from yesterday's digging. Your tunic clings damply to your skin. You work in silence. Only the occasional murmur, a grunt, the clink of a wooden tool on stone. Somewhere in the distance, a priest chants in a ziggurat temple. Your supervisor, a foreman appointed by the local governor, marks your presence on a clay tablet. If you're not here tomorrow, it will be noted. If you fall behind in your labor, your grain allotment may be withheld. If the canal fails, the gods may be angry. As the sun climbs, you move on to shaping a new canal wall. You kneel in the soft earth, smoothing the sides, hauling buckets of clay. There are no shovels as you know them, just wooden paddles, baskets for carrying, and calloused hands. Water must flow evenly. Too much, and fields drown. Too little, and the crops fail. Balance is everything. But there are no breaks, only moments. You sip warm water from a gourd. You chew stale barley bread. A dragonfly lands on your leg, then darts away. By late afternoon, the sun is a weight. Your skin burns. Blisters form on your palms. The air smells of riverweed and sweat and distant animals. And still you work. Because this isn't a job that stops. Water doesn't rest. It floods. It evaporates. And the rulers want taxes in grain. You'll receive your ration at the end of the month. A measure of barley or emmer wheat, depending on the harvest. If the weather holds, if the scribes tally your name correctly, if your crew is not blamed for any breach. Sometimes, you wonder if the gods even see the work you do, but you keep digging. Because this is life in Sumer. To eat is to irrigate is to serve, and to serve is survival. As the sun begins to set, casting the canals in long golden shadows, you shoulder your tools and trudge home. Your muscles ache. Your fingers are raw and still. Tomorrow, you will rise again, because the water will not wait. Now, let us leave these sun-beaten fields behind and journey next to a single man, a king, a warrior, a man of myth and brick and blood. We will now follow the rise and ruin of Gilgamesh. Let us now step into legend, into the carved stones of temple walls, into the oldest surviving epic we know. Here stands Gilgamesh, 2/3 divine, 1/3 mortal, king of Uruk, tamer of beasts, builder of walls, seeker of immortality, but also, perhaps, a real man. Once flesh and blood, walking these same Mesopotamian streets where you just labored, his shadow long since blurred into myth. We begin in Uruk, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. Imagine its walls towering and thick, stretching for miles, built of kiln-fired bricks laid by thousands of hands. These walls are attributed to Gilgamesh, and in the poem that bears his name, they are his pride. But who was he truly? Some scholars believe he ruled around 2700 BCE. His name appears, just barely, in the Sumerian king list, a document half history, half myth. His story, however, lives in the Epic of Gilgamesh, written centuries later in Akkadian, on clay tablets, lost to time and reassembled by archaeologists piece by piece. In the epic, he is a cruel and powerful ruler at first, young, boastful, strong. His people pray for relief from his tyranny. So the gods create a match Enkidu, a wild man of the steppe, unshaven and untamed, who lives with animals and fears no king. Their confrontation is not a war, but a wrestling match, days long, fierce, and thunderous, and when it ends, they do not destroy each other, they become friends. Soul-bound, comrades. Together, they undertake heroic journeys. They slay Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. They kill the bull of heaven, sent by the goddess Ishtar, when Gilgamesh spurns her, and then Enkidu falls ill. It is here the epic shifts from adventure to grief. Gilgamesh cannot save him, and when Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh is broken. He wanders the world seeking immortality, terrified of death, hollowed by loss. He meets Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Great Flood, a tale that echoes later in biblical stories. Gilgamesh learns that the gods have made death the fate of all mankind, and that trying to escape it is futile. In the end, he returns to Uruk, not triumphant, but wiser. He looks at his walls, the city he built, the people who endure, and he understands legacy, not life, is what lasts. There is a soft tragedy in this arc. Gilgamesh begins as a figure of power, controlling men, slaying monsters, but ends as a man shaped by grief and memory. In this way, he becomes deeply human. Was he real? We don't know for certain, but someone inspired the legend. And even if he wasn't exactly as the epic describes, the tale of Gilgamesh reflects the fears, hopes, and philosophical questions of the people who first told it. What is life for, if it must end? Can greatness survive death? Do even kings weep? These are not modern questions. They are ancient. As old as the bricks of Uruk, as quiet as a funeral procession winding between ziggurats, as eternal as the clay tablets upon which his name still rests. As you imagine Gilgamesh, no longer just a warrior, but a mourner by the riverbank, you may begin to sense how old the ache of mortality truly is. We will now move gently from the man to the mud, from legend to legacy. Next, we explore one of archaeology's greatest challenges: how ancient cities disappear and what we find buried beneath the dust. Let us descend into the forgotten cities of the Bronze Age. Let us now turn away from kings and epic tales. Let the din of battle fade. Let the voices of rulers grow still. We walk slowly into the silence of dust, into the quiet earth, into cities long buried, names erased, and lives forgotten. This is the archaeology of the Bronze Age. Across the ancient Near East, Anatolia, the Levant, and down into the Indus Valley, thousands of cities once thrived. They hummed with life, markets full of chatter, walls echoing with prayers, homes warm with the scent of stewed lentils and burning reeds. But they are gone now. Some were abandoned slowly. Others were crushed by war, swallowed by shifting rivers, or erased by fire and drought. Many were never recorded by their own people. No stone inscriptions, no scrolls, just fragments, and yet, beneath the ground, pieces remain. Let's walk first to Tel Brak in what is now Syria. Today, it is a low, dusty mound, unremarkable to the untrained eye, but it once held one of the largest cities of the 4th millennium BCE, contemporary with early Sumer. Archaeologists found temples, homes, even strange clay, eye idols, with staring faces. Who made them? What were they meant to see? Nobody knows. Then there is Mohenjo-Daro in modern Pakistan. Discovered in the 1920s, It revealed a city with straight streets, advanced drainage, granaries, and a citadel. There were no grand palaces, no massive statues, no conquests etched in stone, only brick, water, and silence. The people of the Indus Valley wrote, but we cannot yet read their script. We do not know what they called themselves, how they governed, or why their cities fell. Next, you might consider Alalak, once a kingdom in northern Syria. Excavated in the mid-20th century, it offered up palaces with wall paintings, archives with clay tablets, layers of destruction. One fire, then another. Then centuries of stillness, and always questions. What was it like to be the last person to leave a crumbling city? Did they know they were the last? Was the well dry? Did trade collapse? Did the gods stop answering? Across the Aegean, in places like Akrotiri on the island of Thera, modern Santorini, entire towns were preserved in ash. Volcanic eruption buried them in moments, freezing pots on stoves, sandals by bedsides, wall frescoes of monkeys and ships. There are no bodies. The people left in time. But where did they go? Archaeologists tread carefully here. Every brushstroke through the soil might uncover a bead, a room, a staircase never touched for 4,000 years. Each discovery is a whisper, a chance to hear the past breathe again. But so much is lost. Wood rots, papyrus crumbles, oral traditions die with their speakers, and yet a seal ring, a child's toy, a cooking hearth, these survive. Not loudly, not proudly, but patiently. If you ever walk through a museum and see a cracked pot behind glass, consider it may be the only voice left from an entire civilization, a single note from a vast, silent song. Now, let us ascend once more from these layers of buried memory to the surface, where life moved on. In our next segment, we contrast these forgotten cities with a different kind of life. One not lost to time, but immortalized in marble and power. Let us step into the sandals of an elite Athenian citizen and see what daily life felt like at the height of classical Greece. Now, we leave behind the lost and the buried and rise into sunlight, into white stone colonnades, dusty olive groves, and the measured hum of philosophy and trade. This is Athens, classical Athens, the 5th century BCE, not a myth, not a ruin, but a city in full bloom. And today you are not a slave, nor a medic's a foreigner. You are a full Athenian citizen, male, born of Athenian parents, privileged, respected, and obligated. The day begins early. Before sunrise, the city is already stirring. The cocks are crowing, the bread ovens glowing faintly in the dim alleys. You rise from your bed, not overly soft, but passable, on a woven mat with a thin blanket. The home around you is modest 2 rooms, whitewashed walls, an open courtyard in the center. You wash quickly, splashing water from a simple basin. There is no soap as you know it, perhaps just olive oil and a scraper to cleanse the skin. Breakfast is small, perhaps a barley cake, dipped in wine, maybe olives. Nothing elaborate. If you are wealthy enough to own slaves, they may be attending to the household, sweeping the courtyard, or drawing water from the nearby fountain house. And then, it is out into the city. The streets of Athens are not grand boulevards. They are narrow, winding, uneven. Donkeys clatter by. Vendors set up wooden stalls. The smell of fish mingles with the sweet smoke of incense offered to household gods. You might head to the agora, the the heart of civic life. It is here that men gather, not just to buy and sell, but to argue, to vote, to listen. The air is filled with debate.
What should we do about Sparta?
About the grain supply. About the latest playwright's scandalous new drama. If you're an older man, perhaps you take your seat in the boule, the Council of 500. Or if it's your year, you may be serving as a juror. Randomly selected, compensated, and vital to the machinery of Athenian democracy. And if you are young, you might simply linger, listen, watch. Perhaps you are drawn toward the shaded porch where Socrates sits, questioning everything. What is justice? What is courage? He speaks slowly, deliberately, never answers directly. Always another question. Later, after politics and philosophy, comes the gymnasium. Not for strength alone, but for preparation. To keep the citizen body fit, ready to defend Athens if needed. The exercise is vigorous, yes, but it is also social, intellectual. Poetry is recited between rounds. History retold. Muscles and minds together shaped. At home, the women of your household remain mostly out of sight. Their roles are domestic weaving, preparing food, raising children. Their voices are rarely heard in public life. And the slaves, the silent machinery of the city, carry water, tutor children, manage shops. Some are treated kindly, others harshly. Few have hope of freedom. As the sun lowers, the sky glows honeyed and pink. Supper is shared. Perhaps lentils, goat cheese, a bit of meat if fortune smiles. You recline to eat, one elbow on a cushion, drinking watered wine from a ceramic cup. Conversation turns to politics, myth, gossip. A flute plays softly nearby. In the evening, a visit to the theater or a symposium might follow. At the symposium, men gather in private homes to drink, debate, and occasionally revul. There are jokes, philosophical games, riddles, and sometimes the soft strumming of a lyre or the singing of a melancholic ode. Later, the city falls into stillness. The fires dim, the shadows stretch, and even the great temples, Athena's own Parthenon, glow quiet under the moon. You return home, lay back on your modest bed, and sleep, perhaps, with a full belly and an unsettled thought from earlier in the day. Can any man truly know virtue? Now, let us turn to something less grandiose, but no less essential. Something that shaped the daily lives of millions and shifted the course of civilizations: bronze. Bronze, the alloy of copper and tin, was the metal of the age. Harder than copper alone, more durable than stone. It was used for tools, weapons, jewelry, and countless everyday items. Imagine the slow, careful work of a Bronze Age smith. In a smoky workshop, the air thick with the scent of heated metal and charcoal, you see the glowing orange metal poured into molds. The hammer strikes with rhythmic precision, shaping a sword, a sickle, a dagger. This metal was the lifeblood of the Bronze Age world. Without it, the fields would remain fallow, forests uncultivated, homes unbuilt. But bronze was rare. Copper and tin deposits were scattered and often far apart. Traders braved dangerous journeys across mountains, deserts, and seas to bring these metals together. This demand created complex trade networks stretching from the British Isles to Afghanistan. Cities grew wealthy on bronze, but this reliance was fragile. If trade routes faltered, or if tin supplies dried up, the bronze economy could collapse. Later, the arrival of iron. more abundant and accessible, would signal a profound transformation. But for centuries, bronze was king, and in the hands of artisans, warriors, and farmers alike, it shaped a world of gleaming weapons, sharp tools, and intricate ornaments. The metal spoke of power and prestige, and yet it also tells a quieter story of the laborers mining ore, the traders bargaining over cargoes, the craftsmen perfecting their art, and the farmers wielding bronze sickles under hot suns. It is a story of human ingenuity and connection, of challenges met and obstacles overcome. Now, having explored this vital material, we will next journey into the world of ancient Egyptian life. We will immerse ourselves in the daily routines and challenges faced by the people who lived along the Nile. Imagine now the warm, golden sunlight spilling over the banks of the Nile River. The fertile floodplains stretch wide, bordered by desert beyond. You are in ancient Egypt, sometime around 1500 BCE, during the New Kingdom. Life here revolves around the river, its predictable floods bringing life, giving silt and water. You wake early, with the sounds of birds and distant oars dipping in the water. Your home is modest, mud brick walls plastered with mud and straw, a flat roof where children sometimes play. Your family is small but close. Perhaps you farm a small plot of land, growing barley, emmer wheat, flax for linen, and vegetables. You tend a few goats or sheep. The work is steady and unending. Before the flood season, you prepare the fields. During the inundation, you watch and wait as water rises and spreads. Afterward, you begin the planting and harvesting cycles. Your tools are simple but effective: wooden plows, sickles with flint blades, baskets woven from reeds. Water is drawn using a shaduf, a long pole balanced with a bucket on one end, scooping water from canals back into the fields. Your days are marked by hard labor, bending to sow seed, pulling weeds, carrying water. Yet there are moments of respite. You might gather with neighbors for festivals honoring the gods, especially Hapi, the god of the Nile flood. Music, dancing, and offerings fill the air. Your diet is basic but nourishing bread, beer brewed from barley, onions, garlic, and occasionally fish from the river. Life is not easy. Floods can be too low, leading to famine, or too high, destroying homes. Disease is common, as are injuries. There is little privacy. Homes are close, and sounds carry. But you are part of a long tradition, a people tied intimately to the rhythms of the river. Your survival depends on knowledge passed through generations: when to plant, when to harvest, how to read the skies. You are also connected to a vast state machinery. Your taxes, paid in grain or labor, support the temples, the pharaoh's projects, and the army. Though you may never meet the pharaoh, you live under his shadow, a distant god, king whose power shapes your world. Yet your life, with all its challenges and routines, is rich in meaning. In the small moments, the smell of fresh bread, the laughter of children, the soft sway of papyrus reeds in the breeze, you find a quiet beauty. As night falls on the Nile, the stars rise clear and bright, and you rest, ready to face another day. Next, we will explore the life of one extraordinary individual who changed the course of Egyptian history, Hatshepsut. Now, we turn from the rhythms of everyday life to the story of an extraordinary individual whose reign reshaped ancient Egypt. A woman who rose above tradition to to rule as Pharaoh. Hatshepsut. Picture yourself walking slowly through the sun-drenched courtyards of the vast mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, carved into the sheer cliffs overlooking the Nile Valley. The air is warm, filled with the faint scent of limestone dust and dried lotus flowers left as offerings. Sunlight filters softly through the colonnades, casting long, gentle shadows on the polished stone floors. Around you, painted reliefs tell stories of gods, queens, and journeys to distant lands, faint colors still visible after more than 3 millennia. Hatshepsut was born into a world ruled by men, yet she found a way to claim power with quiet determination and striking presence. She was the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and later married her half-brother Thutmose II, as was custom. But when he died, his heir was a young boy, Thutmose III, still too young to rule. In that uncertain moment, Hatshepsut stepped forward, not merely as regent, but as pharaoh in her own right. Imagine her walking through the corridors of the royal palace, draped in the traditional kilt and crowned with the Neem's headdress. She wore the false beard of kingship, a symbol of authority, and carried the scepter, embodying the divine right to rule. Her image carved into temple walls is both commanding and serene, projecting strength tempered with wisdom. Her reign, lasting over 2 decades, was marked by stability and prosperity. The Nile flowed predictably, crops flourished, and the great temples grew ever grander. Under her guidance, Egyptian architects and artists crafted magnificent monuments, the most famous being her mortuary temple, a marvel of terraces, colonnades, and gardens, blending seamlessly into the natural rock face. She also initiated bold trade expeditions to the mysterious land of Punt, perhaps located on the Red Sea coast, or even farther afield. Picture the ships setting sail early in the morning, their wooden hulls gliding over calm blue waves. The air smells of salty sea spray mixed with the aroma of resin and incense carried on board. Exotic goods like myrrh, frankincense, gold, and strange animals were brought back, enriching Egyptian temples and palaces. Yet, despite her achievements, Hatshepsut's reign was controversial. After her death, later pharaohs sought to erase her memory, carving out her statues, defacing her name from monuments. Perhaps her unprecedented role as a female pharaoh unsettled those who followed, but her story endures, a testament to resilience and quiet rebellion. Through her legacy, we glimpse a woman who walked the line between tradition and change, who understood power not just as force, but as vision. As the soft evening light fades over the Nile, imagine the temple lit by flickering oil lamps, their gentle glow casting dancing shadows on walls carved with stories of gods and kings. And now, from the grandeur of Hatshepsut's Egypt, we cross the sea to another ancient civilization shrouded in mystery, the Minoans of Crete. Now, imagine yourself stepping onto the sun-kissed island of Crete, nestled in the heart of the Mediterranean Sea, about 500 years ago. The salty sea breeze carries a gentle warmth, mingled with the faint fragrance of wild herbs and blooming oleander. The soft crunch of sand underfoot, the distant call of seabirds, and the steady lapping of turquoise waves against rocky shores set the scene for a civilization both vibrant and enigmatic. Here flourished the Minoans, a people whose culture pulses in the colorful frescoes, that still adorn palace walls, their art alive with dancing figures, graceful bulls, and flowing patterns of nature. The Palace of Knossos spreads before you, an architectural maze of grand halls, winding corridors, and open courtyards. Its columns, painted a deep red and tapered like inverted trees, stand proud against pale stone floors. But the Minoans remain a mystery in many ways. Their writing system, Linear A, is a puzzle yet to be solved. The meaning behind their symbols remains locked away, whispering secrets only time can reveal. We do not even know what they called themselves. The name, Minoan, comes from the legendary King Minos, whose myths have echoed for millennia, of labyrinths and the fearsome Minotaur lurking within. Walking through Knossos, you might imagine the bustle of artisans shaping delicate pottery, the scent of wet clay and pigments in the air. You can almost hear the soft murmurs of priests preparing rituals or the rhythmic pounding of weavers' looms. The Minoans lived close to the sea, their ships laden with trade goods, ivory, gold, saffron, voyaging across the Mediterranean to Egypt, the Levant, and the Greek mainland. Unlike many ancient civilizations, the Minoans appear less obsessed with warfare. Few weapons have been found. Their art celebrates nature, ritual, and the sacred bull, symbolizing strength and fertility. The peaceful rhythm of their lives seems almost a lullaby compared to the tumultuous histories of neighboring peoples. Yet, their story ends mysteriously. Around 1450 BCE, the palaces fell silent, possibly due to a combination of natural disasters, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and the rise of the Mycenaean Greeks, who left their mark on Crete. As you wander through the ruins, dust motes dancing in shafts of sunlight, you might wonder about the people who lived here. What songs did they sing? What dreams filled their nights? What stories were whispered beneath the olive trees? The Minoans remain a quiet echo of a vibrant world, inviting us to listen closely to the whispers of history. Next, we will delve deeper into one of those natural disasters, the eruption of Thera, that changed the course of this ancient civilization and rippled through the ancient world. Picture the island of Thera, now known as Santorini, a crescent-shaped jewel in the sparkling blue Aegean Sea. Around 1600 BCE, this island was alive with bustling towns, terraced fields of grapes and olives, and harbors filled with wooden ships gently bobbing in the sunlit waters. The air is fragrant with salt and wild thyme, mingling with the faint smoke of hearth fires and stone homes. The rhythm of daily life hums softly. Fishermen mend nets. Children laugh as they chase one another through narrow streets. Women carry baskets of freshly baked bread. Then, without warning, the earth begins to tremble beneath your feet. A deep rumble grows louder, the sky darkens, and thick plumes of ash rise like smoke from a giant's breath. The volcano at the island's center begins its violent awakening. The eruption unfolds with terrifying power, sending torrents of lava cascading down the slopes, clouds of ash blotting the sun, and shockwaves that ripple through the surrounding sea. Towering tsunamis surge outward, crashing into distant shores and disrupting civilizations far beyond Thera. Yet, amidst destruction, the eruption also preserves. The thick ash blankets the towns of Akrotiri, sealing in frescoes painted in vibrant blues, reds, and yellows. Walls and pottery, woven baskets, and wooden furniture, all frozen in time beneath layers of pumice. No human remains were found, suggesting the inhabitants fled before the worst, guided perhaps by ancient warnings in the tremors and smoke. This cataclysm reshaped the island's geography and may have contributed to the decline of the Minoan civilization, disrupting trade and politics across the region. Imagine the eerie silence after the storm, the ash settling, the skies clearing, the scent of wet earth and burnt resin filling the air. The island breathes anew, but the echoes of that fiery moment linger through the centuries, whispered in myth and legend. From this scene of natural upheaval, we will now transition to the vibrant contrasts within the sprawling Roman Empire, exploring the lives of its elite and its common people. Imagine yourself walking through the bustling streets of ancient Rome, sometime in the 1st century CE. The morning sun casts a warm golden glow over the sprawling city, its stone buildings rising against a pale blue sky. The air is rich with the mingling scents of fresh bread from nearby bakeries, fragrant herbs from market stalls, and the faint tang of the Tiber River, flowing steadily through the heart of the city. The streets buzz with activity, vendors calling out their wares, the clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones, and the murmur of crowds gathering in the forum. Here, social life unfolds in sharp contrasts, where the lives of the wealthy elite and the common people exist side by side, separated by walls, wealth, and opportunity. First, picture the patricians, the Roman elite. You find yourself standing before a grand domus, a stately townhouse adorned with intricate mosaics and frescoes depicting scenes from mythology and nature. The marble floors are cool beneath your sandals, and the scent of burning incense drifts through open windows. Servants move silently through the rooms, preparing for the day ahead. The patrician family begins with a leisurely breakfast, fresh bread dipped in honey, olives cured in fragrant herbs, and strong, diluted wine. Their conversations touch on politics, philosophy, and the latest news from the empire's far-flung provinces. Throughout the day, these elites attend to their public duties, participating in Senate meetings, hosting elaborate banquets, or patronizing the arts. Their lives are marked by leisure, luxury, and influence. Now step beyond their walls into the crowded, noisy neighborhoods where plebeians and freedmen live. The narrow alleys between insulae, multi-story apartment blocks, are alive with children playing, artisans hammering in workshops, and the scent of cooking wafting from small kitchens. The buildings rise high and close, their wooden balconies often precarious, and their walls thin enough that neighbors' voices mingle easily. The common Roman wakes early, joining the throng to secure water from public fountains or to make their way to market stalls selling fresh vegetables, salted fish, and coarse bread. Their work is demanding, blacksmiths shaping iron tools, bakers kneading dough, scribes copying texts by candlelight. Life is precarious. Fires can sweep through the wooden buildings, diseases spread quickly in crowded quarters, and wages are modest, but community ties run deep, with neighbors sharing news, meals, and celebrations. As evening falls, both elite and commoner alike may gather for public entertainment. The roar of crowds echoes from the Colosseum during gladiatorial games, the cheers and gasps weaving a tapestry of sound that momentarily unites all classes. In this city of vast disparities, you feel the pulse of a civilization both grand and fragile. As night descends, the city quiets. Torches gutter, doors close, and the endless rhythms of Roman life pause until dawn. From the heart of Rome, we will journey next to the rich and complex world of Byzantium, the eastern heir to Roman legacy. Imagine yourself stepping into Constantinople, the great city on the Bosporus. During the height of the Byzantine Empire, around the 6th century CE, the air is warm, tinged with the salty breeze from the nearby sea and fragrant with incense wafting from nearby churches. Marble columns gleam softly beneath a pale sun, and the clatter of horse-drawn chariots echoes across wide, bustling streets paved with worn stone. Constantinople is a city of contrasts, ancient Roman grandeur interwoven with emerging Christian faith, East meeting West, tradition mingling with innovation. As you walk through the Hippodrome, the massive stadium where chariot races draw thousands, the crowd's cheers rise and fall like the tide, an undercurrent of passion and rivalry. The roar feels distant yet persistent, blending with the steady hum of merchants hawking spices, textiles, and ceramics in nearby bazaars. Your path takes you to the Great Palace, a sprawling complex of courtyards, mosaics shimmering in the sun, and gardens filled with cypress and orange trees. Here, the emperor and his court live in luxury, surrounded by layers of ceremony and guarded by elite soldiers clad in shimmering armor. Yet outside the palace walls, life for most citizens is quieter, marked by routine and resilience. Common people live in dense neighborhoods of stone and timber. Their homes are simple but sturdy, with small courtyards where families gather. The sounds of daily life, children playing, the rhythmic pounding of weavers' looms, vendors calling their goods, fill the air. Religion is woven tightly into the fabric of life. The Hagia Sophia, a magnificent church crowned with a vast dome, dominates the skyline. Inside, the soft flicker of candlelight illuminates golden mosaics depicting saints and angels, and the scent of burning incense invites contemplation. The Byzantine economy thrives on trade. Caravans arrive from the Silk Road, bringing silk and spices. Ships sail the Mediterranean laden with grain and olive oil. Education and scholarship flourish in monastic centers and imperial schools, preserving ancient knowledge while fostering new ideas. But the city is no stranger to danger. Plagues sweep through crowded quarters, walls must be defended against invaders, and court intrigues weave their subtle, sometimes deadly, threads. As twilight deepens, lanterns glow along narrow streets, casting warm pools of light on cobblestones. The city slows its breath, embracing the rhythm of night. Here, amid stone and spirit, history breathes deeply, its pulse both ancient and alive. Next, we will explore the quieter, harsh life of a medieval serf in feudal Europe, a world far removed from the grandeur of Byzantium, yet equally compelling in its daily struggle. Imagine yourself waking in a dim, cold hut. The roof is thatched with straw, and the walls, made of wattle and daub, barely keep out the chill. A thin stream of dawn light seeps in through a small opening in the wall, illuminating the straw-strewn dirt floor. You stir from a bed of rough cloth and flattened hay, the ache of yesterday's labor still clinging to your limbs. You are a serf, bound to the land of a medieval manor in 12th century France. Your life is not quite slavery, but it is far from free. You cannot leave the land without your lord's permission, and what you grow is never entirely yours. You rise early, long before sunrise, and prepare for the day's toil. There is no privacy. Your small home is shared with your family, and perhaps even a few animals, who provide warmth during the winter months. The hearth smolders weekly, and breakfast is meager, perhaps a piece of coarse bread, some weak ale or watered down milk, and if you're lucky, a bit of dried fruit. Then begins the labor. You plow the fields with wooden tools pulled by oxen, your feet sinking into cold, muddy earth. You sow barley, oats, or rye, hoping the harvest will be plentiful enough to survive the winter. The soil is rocky, the weather unpredictable. All your effort is subject to nature's whim. Whatever you produce, you must surrender a portion to your lord as rent. Often the best cuts of meat, the finest grain, and even labor on his own land before you tend to your own. Some days are lost entirely to his service, repairing fences, fetching water, or gathering firewood from his forest. There is no safety net. A poor harvest might mean hunger. A good harvest, slightly less hunger. Illness is common, and with no formal medicine, even minor injuries can become fatal. You've seen friends and family die young, of fever, childbirth, or wounds that would barely trouble a modern person. Religion is both a comfort and a cage. The village church teaches that your place in life is God's will. You pray often, partly out of devotion, partly out of fear. Hell is described in vivid detail. You hope that by obeying, by toiling without complaint, you'll find reward in the next life. Yet, even amid this hardship, there are fleeting moments of peace. On feast days, the village gathers for shared meals, songs, and dancing. You might carve a simple flute, or share stories with children near the hearth. Nature itself offers small wonders, a bright patch of wildflowers, birdsong at dawn, or the distant sound of a stream. Still, the rhythm of your life is one of endurance. The seasons govern your days. Your fate is largely out of your hands. You live not for luxury, but for survival. And so, the sun sets as it always does, slipping behind the hills while smoke curls into the dusky sky. You lie down, muscles sore, tomorrow's burdens already looming now. Let us leave the fields and forests behind and turn our attention to an ancient enigma, one still whispered in the annals of time. Next, we'll delve into segment 17, a mystery deep within the sands, the still unsolved secrets of the sea peoples, and the collapse of Bronze Age civilizations. Now, let your mind drift to the hazy shores of the eastern Mediterranean, some 200 years ago. The sun sets low over the Aegean Sea, casting long, golden reflections across the waves. The air is heavy with salt, and distant cries of seabirds echo over ruined harbors. This was once a vibrant world, full of trade, writing, kings, and power. The great Bronze Age civilizations, Egypt, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the cities of the Levant, each rose with monumental architecture, complex societies, and webs of alliance and tribute. But within a span of only a few decades, this world collapsed. And in the quiet wreckage, a shadowy force is often blamed: the sea peoples. Who were they? That question has echoed through the centuries. The Egyptians wrote of them in stone, vivid scenes carved into temple walls showing chaotic naval battles and fierce invaders in strange feathered helmets. Pharaoh Ramses III, in the early 12th century BCE, claimed victory against them, but his words carry the tone of desperation. Some theories suggest they were migrants, fleeing famine or drought. Others think they were pirates or displaced warriors, moving across the seas like a storm. There is no definitive homeland. Perhaps the Aegean, perhaps Sicily, Sardinia, even further west. Imagine the coastal cities of that time: Ugarit, Alatia, Troy. One by one, they fell into silence. Trade ceased. Writing vanished. Palaces burned. Across the map, the lights of civilization dimmed. Archaeologists uncover layers of ash and shattered walls in these places. Destruction layers eerily aligned in time. Ships are found burned at dockside, as if attacked by surprise. Skeletons are buried not with ritual, but with haste, sometimes found still clutching weapons. The sea peoples left few traces of their own. No great monuments, no written records. Their presence is known mainly through the absence they create: collapsed economies, abandoned settlements, broken alliances. Some modern scholars suggest that this collapse wasn't caused solely by invaders. Perhaps it was a perfect storm: earthquakes, internal revolts, droughts, famine, and the overextension of fragile empires. The sea peoples may have been both cause and consequence, opportunistic raiders amid a world already falling apart. It is difficult to say with certainty, and perhaps that is what makes the story so haunting, a reminder that even the greatest civilizations can vanish, not with a single cataclysm, but a slow unraveling. And so the sea peoples remain a mystery. Like ghosts across the water, their sails once black against the horizon, their names forgotten, but their impact carved into the bones of a lost world. As the stars rise over the Mediterranean, casting a gentle shimmer across ancient ruins, we leave behind that silence and turn our eyes to the distant highlands, where Celtic druids once whispered to stone and sky. Next, we travel into segment Unteenth E, the elite levs of Iron Age druids, and the mystique of their sacred power. Now imagine yourself standing in the quiet heart of a forest. The trees around you are ancient: oak, ash, and yew, towering high into a misty sky. The air is cool and green with the scent of moss and damp bark. Birds call softly overhead, and far away, a stream murmurs between stones. You are in the Celtic world of the late Iron Age, perhaps somewhere in Gaul, or the green highlands of Britannia. And here, in this sacred grove, dwells a figure both revered and feared: the Druid. The Druids were not priests in the usual sense, not cloistered men or temple-bound monks. They were part philosopher, part judge, part healer, and part magician. They did not write down their teachings. Instead, they passed wisdom orally, layer upon layer of lore, memorized over years of apprenticeship. To become a full druid might take 20 years or more. In their society, druids stood apart. They were exempt from taxes and from war. Even chieftains deferred to them. Their counsel was considered binding, their judgments final. Their knowledge encompassed the natural world, the cycles of stars, the properties of plants, the tales of ancestors, and the laws of their people. Imagine the rituals they conducted, not in great temples, but under open sky. Sacred groves were their sanctuaries. Midsummer solstice, the winter turning, the flowering of mistletoe, these were moments of spiritual weight. Fire and water, stone and tree, all held meaning in the Druids' worldview. They dressed in simple robes, often white, and carried staffs of wood, symbols of connection to both earth and sky. Their presence could calm warriors or ignite fear. Some Roman accounts, biased though they may be, describe them performing sacrifices. But the truth is more veiled, more elusive, just like the Druids themselves. To the Roman mind, the Druids were dangerous, keepers of a powerful, irrational old world. Julius Caesar wrote about them with suspicion, even admiration. And when Rome finally conquered Gaul and pushed into Britannia, they made special effort to suppress the Druids, burning their groves and scattering their schools. Yet they lingered. Quietly, in folk memory and whispered story, they became the stuff of legend, of Arthurian myth. Merlin, after all, is only a druid reshaped through medieval imagination. And what was daily life like for a druid? It wasn't all mystery and ritual. Much of their time was likely spent mediating disputes, teaching, tending to the sick, and advising leaders. They studied the flight of birds, the growth of plants, the shape of clouds. Their wisdom was practical as well as sacred. As you sit now in the imagined hush of that forest, think of the rhythm of their days, the pacing walk beneath trees, the murmured chant to welcome dawn, the long debates with students by firelight, the gathering of herbs by moon's rise. Their life was a slow, contemplative one, rooted deeply in land, tradition, and silence. And so the Druids pass quietly through history, not erased, but hidden in the folds between myth and fact. Let the soft winds of the forest fade now, as we move into our next segment, the final laboring breath of an empire and the quiet, grinding collapse of Roman Britain. Next is segment 19E, the last days of Roman Britain. Now let your thoughts settle upon a gray, windswept coastline. The sky is overcast, the air tinged with the scent of sea salt and wet wool. You stand on the edge of a crumbling Roman road, its stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, hooves, and cartwheels. Before you lies a land that is slowly forgetting itself. This is Britain in the early 5th century, a province of the Roman Empire that has begun to slip, quietly, out of Rome's grasp. For nearly 400 years, Roman Britain had been part of something vast. From Hadrian's Wall in the north to the orchards of Kent in the south, Roman culture had shaped the landscape. Villas with painted walls and underfloor heating dotted the countryside. Market towns hummed with trade. Soldiers drilled in forts and patrolled the borders. Latin inscriptions honored emperors, gods, and benefactors. But now, the familiar rhythms are beginning to falter. The legions are gone. In the year 410, the Emperor Honorius, preoccupied with invasions and civil war closer to Rome, wrote to the cities of Britain and told them to look to their own defense. It was a quiet severing, no final battle, no dramatic exodus, just absence. What follows is a slow, grinding unraveling. Imagine yourself as a farmer in the countryside. You've lived your whole life under the Roman system, paying taxes, sending sons to serve, depending on distant governors to settle disputes. But now the tax collectors don't come. The roads fall into disrepair. Grain shipments to the cities stop. Small things begin to change. Coins become rarer. Imports cease. The local magistrate no longer holds court. Villas are abandoned, their mosaics fading under moss. Town walls crumble. The language shifts. Latin is no longer heard as often in the marketplace. And with the soldiers gone, old fears returns. Raids from across the sea, rival clans rising, neighbors eyeing each other with suspicion. And yet, the change is not instant. In some places, Roman customs persist, hybridized with older, native traditions. You might still see togas worn at ceremonial feasts. A priest still lights incense at a worn-out altar to Jupiter. Children might grow up learning both Latin and the tongue of their ancestors. In other places, Roman influence vanishes almost completely. Wooden huts replace stone buildings. Pagan rites return. Burial customs change. The memory of empire fades like fog at dawn. This was not a dramatic collapse, but a slow shedding. A culture once wrapped in roads, aqueducts, law codes, and urban life now retreats into localism, into smaller tribal units, into oral memory. It was not all decline, though. Some scholars argue that people were healthier in the post-Roman period, freed from heavy taxation, growing their own food, building in simpler ways. But for those who had grown up in the imperial system, it must have felt like living in the ruins of something greater. Walk now through one of these ghost towns. A Roman forum overgrown with ivy, a bathhouse crumbling to dust, graffiti still scratched into the stone walls. This is not just the end of an era, it's the fading echo of an idea. Pax Romana, the Roman peace, once spread like a net across continents. Here, at the edge of that world, it dissolves into mist. And as we leave the twilight of Roman Britain behind, we turn our gaze to the distant east, to one of the world's oldest cities, where fire was sacred and kings ruled with divine mandate. Next, we enter segment 20A, the enduring elegance and mystery of ancient Persia. Now, let your mind drift eastward, beyond deserts and mountains, beyond the shifting edges of empire, until it settles in the heart of ancient Persia. The air is dry and scented faintly with roses and citrus. You walk beneath the soft shade of cypress trees. A gentle stream murmurs nearby, its waters flowing through carefully carved channels of stone. This is not wilderness, but a chahar bagh, a Persian garden, ordered, geometric, and deeply symbolic. In this oasis, the world is made calm, and time flows as gently as the water. Persia, known today as Iran, was home to one of the world's most enduring and influential civilizations. Long before the rise of Rome, long before Alexander crossed its borders, the Persian empires shaped the ancient world. And even in decline, long after the great kings had passed, Persia retained an elegance, a deep and quiet grace, unlike anything else. Imagine now the rhythm of life in a Persian city during the Sasanian Empire, perhaps in the 5th or 6th century. The streets are narrow, winding between homes of mud brick and plaster. Marketplaces offer spices, silks, ceramics. Children chase each other through courtyards. The Zoroastrian fire temple stands nearby, its sacred flame tended night and day, never allowed to die. Zoroastrianism, the ancient faith of Persia, placed fire and light at the center of its rituals, not as deities themselves, but as reflections of purity and divine truth. The priests, magi, as the Greeks called them, tended these flames with quiet devotion. Their chants rose in slow, rhythmic cadence, echoing softly in the temple's inner chambers. And high above all, perhaps even beyond the concern of daily life, sat the Shahanshah, the King of Kings. He lived in a palace adorned with vaulted halls, stone reliefs, and jewel-bright fabrics. His court was a center of diplomacy, scholarship, and ceremony. Visitors from Byzantium, India, Arabia, and beyond came to pay tribute, to argue trade, or to seek alliances. But to his own people, he was more than a ruler. He was the axis around which order turned. The court followed strict etiquette. Music, poetry, and astronomy flourished in elegant rooms perfumed with incense. Yet this world of luxury was built on layers of quiet labor. Farmers in distant villages tending wheat under a baking sun. Weavers dyeing wool in copper vats, scribes recording tax rolls on tablets and scrolls. Persian engineering was subtle and astonishing. Underground canals called qanats brought water from the mountains to fields and gardens far away. Ice houses preserved snow in summer. Caravanserais welcomed travelers with food, shelter, and fire. Trade flowed across the empire's roads, linking China to Rome, Samarkand to the Persian Gulf. But time, even for Persia, moved forward. By the 7th century, new powers stirred. The old dynasties fractured. Conquest came from the west, carried on swift Arabian horses. Zoroastrian fire temples were extinguished, one by one. A new faith took root, Islam, transforming the land, the language, the architecture, and the rhythm of daily life. And yet, Persia did not vanish. It adapted. It reflowered under new names, new kings, new poets. The Persian language endured. The gardens remained. So too did the sense of elegance, of beauty in order, of meaning in the quiet harmony of water, tree, and stone. As you rest here, in the imagined hush of a Persian garden, you feel history settle around you like soft silk. The sun sets slowly behind the distant Zagros mountains. Somewhere, a flute plays a mournful tune. The scent of jasmine hangs in the air. The garden is eternal. And though the world would change many times, Persia's quiet beauty left an imprint that never faded. Let us continue now, quietly, to wander through a few more corners of forgotten history. Imagine the mist curling through the rice paddies just before dawn. The sky is gray with soft light, and the air is cool against your skin, scented with damp earth and the faint sweetness of last season's straw. You are a peasant farmer in feudal Japan, sometime during the Kamakura period. Your home is a one-room wooden structure with a thatched roof. Tatami mats line the floor. There is no glass, only shutters and thin screens to protect you from the elements. A fire smolders in the hearth, your only source of warmth through long winters and sudden storms. Before the sun rises, you're already walking barefoot through the paddies, knee-deep in water. Mosquitoes nip at your ankles. You plant rice by hand, stoop for hours, every movement slow and repetitive. The monotony is broken only by the occasional call of a crane or the croak of frogs. The mud pulls at your legs with each step. Heavy, constant tiring. You are bound by the system of Shiwen, estates governed by local lords, the daimi. Your labor is not truly yours. You pay taxes in rice, labor, and goods, knowing that a portion of what you grow will be sent to support far-off warriors and temples. Samurai on horseback may ride by, armored and untouchable, ignoring your bowed figure in the fields. Disease spreads easily in close quarters, and a single bad season, a flood, a blight, a war, can mean starvation. And yet, amid the hardship, there is rhythm: the planting, the tending, the harvest. Festivals mark the passing seasons. You share simple meals of rice, pickles, and miso soup with your family. You light paper lanterns and place them on the river during Obon, honoring the spirits of your ancestors. You bow before your tiny Shinto altar, offering prayers for protection from famine and fire. The life is hard. The days are long, but within the repetition lies a quiet dignity, a world carved from soil and spirit. Far to the south of Rome and Byzantium, beyond the deserts, and down into the highlands of ancient Ethiopia, once stood the kingdom of Aksum, a powerful civilization whose voice has almost vanished from the pages of popular history. Imagine standing in the highlands near the Red Sea. The air is dry but cool, with wind rustling acacia trees and sunlight flickering through their branches. The city of Aksum stretches before you, its skyline marked by towering obelisks, some rising over 70 feet into the sky, carved with doors, windows, and patterns like stone replicas of houses reaching toward the heavens. This kingdom thrived between the 1st and 7th centuries CE. Its ports traded with India, Arabia, Byzantium, and beyond. Elephants and gold moved across its markets. Frankincense and ivory filled ships bound for far-off lands. You walk through its narrow streets paved with flagstone. Merchants call out in Jiyaz, the ancient language of the realm. Traders from Yemen and Egypt speak Greek or Sabaean. The air is rich with spices and dust, with the low hum of livestock and human conversation. You pass temples older than memory, then churches where carved stone crosses decorate doorways. Aksum adopted Christianity in the 4th century, long before most of Europe. Monks in white robes sit in cool caves, their chants echoing off stone. The king rules from a palace of pillars and courtyards, holding an iron scepter. He claims descent from the union of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. His emissaries carry letters sealed with wax to Constantinople, his gold coins stamped with Greek script and Christian crosses. And yet, even kingdoms fall, climate shifts, trade routes change. The rise of Islam reorients the world. By the 8th century, Aksum recedes into the highlands. Today, only silence remains, broken by birdsong and the wind rustling through fallen stela. But once, here, on the Red Sea's edge, stood a mighty crossroads of civilizations, carved into the rock and remembered in whispers. The desert is not empty, it breathes. Imagine yourself beneath a sky so wide it stretches beyond imagination. The sand glows pale gold, shaped into waves by wind. The air is bone, dry, the silence deep, broken only by the rhythmic clop of camel hooves. You are part of a Saharan caravan in the 14th century, moving slowly across the dunes from Timbuktu to Ghanims. Hundreds of miles of sun, wind, and shifting sand. The caravan is long. Camels, each laden with salt slabs or bags of gold, move in slow procession. Traders wrap their faces in blue indigo veils to shield against sand and sun. Dates and dried millet are passed hand to hand. Water is precious, carried in skin bags, rationed carefully. The journey takes weeks. You sleep beneath stars that shimmer like glass in the cold desert night. Fires burn low. Stories are told in quiet voices. of gin in the dunes, of ancient cities buried in sand, of prophets and princes and lost caravans swallowed by storms. Along the way, you reach oses, islands of life in the dry sea. Here tall palms sway above cool springs. Mud brick walls enclose shaded gardens. You rest, repair sandals, trade goods, refill your water skins. In Timbuktu, you glimpse the spires of the Jingareber Mosque and the pages of handwritten manuscripts. Knowledge preserved in the desert. In Goodnight, white, washed homes are cooled by hidden channels of air and ringed by high walls. The desert may seem harsh, but it is full of rhythm, of survival, of knowledge carried from town to town, of gold exchanged for salt, and of ideas written on parchment and passed down for centuries. You sleep under constellations known since Babylon. And as the caravan presses forward, you understand this is not merely a journey of trade. It is a lifeline through the vast silence of history. The city of Venice does not breathe like other cities. It drifts. It floats on a lagoon, its streets made of water, its walls reflected in every canal. You glide quietly in a gondola as dusk settles, and the sky turns the color of worn silk. It is the 15th century. Venice is at the height of its wealth and complexity. Her ships dominate the Adriatic. Her merchants grow rich on silk, spices, and secrets. But at night, the city reveals a slower rhythm, a softer heartbeat beneath the masks of power. You pass beneath stone bridges. Oil lamps flicker in windows. The water laps gently at pilings, and the scent of salt, wood, and time drifts on the breeze. Inside the palazzos, behind curtains of velvet and lace, powerful families, like the Medicis Dandalos and Contarinas, plot marriages, trades, and alliances. Marble floors echo with the hush of slippers, and music from lutes or harpsichords drifts from upper windows. But this elegance is only part of the story. Down alleys, fishermen haul nets by moonlight. Street sweepers dump refuse into the canal. In the dark corners of the city, whispers rise of plague, of political assassination, of the feared Council of Ten. Yet Venice persists. Her government is intricate, almost mathematical. Her power is distributed like gears in a clockwork. Her faith is guarded by the golden, winged lion of Saint Mark, whose basilica glows like a Byzantine dream. And still the city floats. Gondoliers sing soft songs. The bell of San Marco tolls the hour. Cats slink along the stones, watching you with lamp-like eyes. The water holds every reflection, every sound. Venice is beautiful, but her beauty is like glass, fragile, sharp-edged, reflective. As you drift down a canal, eyes half closed, the city folds around you like a slow, moving dream. The past glimmers beneath the surface, just below reach. And always, there is the water. And now, the echoes of history have grown faint. The fires have dimmed, the footsteps have quieted, and the ancient streets, whether Persian, Roman, or Venetian, have folded back into time. You've wandered through centuries, across empires and ruins, through muddy fields and candlelit halls, and still, the world spins quietly on, just as it always has. So let it all go now. The noise, the weight, the need to understand everything. There is nothing more to do. Now is the time to rest. Let the past keep watch for a while. And as you drift into sleep, remember, you are safe. You are still. And the stories will be here when you return. Good night.